What can I help you with today?
Well, I've been seeing a lot of this curling on TV, and I don't know what's going on.
I meant to drink, but yeah, let's talk curling. Welcome back to Curl Up with Jamie. This is the first episode in the strategy series. Alright, so here are the basics. Curling is often referred to as chess on ice, so there's a lot of strategy involved. You're always trying to think a couple shots ahead, trying to figure out where you're going to leave your opposition and what that's going to then leave you to play. So there are three general strategy approaches. All of them are appropriate under different circumstances, or they might be appropriate for different teams depending on your tendencies and all that. So there's no black and white answers, it's kind of just what's appropriate for your team. So there's defensive strategy, offensive strategy, and then there's also what's called probing. So starting off with the defensive strategy, that strategy is pretty simple. Not a lot of rocks in play. It moves pretty quickly because you're probably playing a lot of hits and open shots like that. But it often results in a low scoring game because of that, which might be effective. You might want to use this strategy if you're playing against a team that has a slightly higher skill level, that might be slightly better than you, because it levels the playing field a little bit. The shots are simpler, and you can try to stay in the game with them a little bit longer. Also, if the ice conditions are a little bit tricky, you might want to use a defensive style of play. Once again, just because the shots are a little bit simpler, and under tricky ice conditions, those finesse shots that are already hard become that much harder. Now the second strategy is offensive. This is basically the complete opposite of the defensive strategy that I just talked about. So you are calling a lot of things, a lot of finesse shots, so guards, come-arounds, freezes, all that good stuff. When you are a really offensive team, that means that you're comfortable taking that risk. There's a lot of rocks in play, so you might give up a big end because there are so many rocks. So it's a little bit riskier, but you're also trying to score big, so sometimes it's worth it. So this strategy is really useful when you are playing against a slightly weaker team, because you can really capitalize on their mistakes, and also when you're down in score, because with that many rocks in play, the odds of you scoring a big end are increased. So the last strategy approach is called probing, which is also known as the blended attack, and that's kind of the happy medium between offensive and defensive. So you're kind of floating between the two. Depending how the end plays out, that's going to dictate if you're a little bit more offensive or a little bit defensive. So the thing about this strategy is that you kind of need to be good at all the shots. You need to be able to have the hits and the draws both in your repertoire of shot making skills. So you need to be patient, you need to be willing to adapt to situations depending how the end plays out, and you need to be willing to take on a certain level of risk. As a general rule, when you have the hammer, you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive, and when you don't have the hammer, that's when you want to play a little bit more defensive style of play. So when you're thinking about what strategy to employ and what shot to call, there are 5 main factors that you should take into consideration: end, score, hammer, ice conditions, and the ability of both your team and your opposition. So there's a lot to think about when you're trying to figure out what style of play you want to use and what shots you want to call. And don't forget that this thought process needs to be pretty quick. But the more that you do it, the more you go through all these steps, the more you'll be more comfortable with it, and it'll kind of just flow from there. So if you have any questions, comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on Curl Up with Jamie.